Hello, welcome to Unit 2, Lesson 1, Solving One-Variable Equations. Within this lesson, scholars will be able to model and solve one-variable equations and variables on one side-by-side equations. Within our key points, today we'll be talking about variables, constants, and how to isolate variables. With this, variable is a number that we do not know, constant is a fixed value, and to isolate something means you have to get the number alone. In this equation, we're going to go ahead and do reverse operations, which means we're going to do the opposite of whatever we see. So example of this is the opposite of addition is subtraction, the opposite of multiplication is division. Within an example that we have, solving two-step equations, we have 3x plus 6 equals 12. This is our first example. It's going to give us the guiding factors to help us with the rest of the problems. What operation is being done first? That's always what we want to analyze. So with this, we have 3x plus 6 equals 12, so 3x will be first. The next operation that's being done second is that you're adding 6. Knowing what we are having, we're going to do the opposite of both directions. So with this, that means what's done second, which is plus 6, we're going to do the inverse of that. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. Then the second step that we're going to do is we're going to do the variables 3x. So after that, we're just going to divide 3 from both sides, and that's going to give us our answer. In later problems, we're going to actually work it out step by step to see what our answer will be. So once again, to go over in this example, we have x divided by 4 subtracted by 6 equals 3. First, you have to identify what variable is being done first, and then you have to see what is being done second, and then you remember the steps. So since it's a two-step equation, you're going to do the opposite direction, which means we're going to do the opposite of subtraction first, and then we're going to go and do the opposite of division. The opposite of subtraction is addition, so we're going to add 6 to both sides. That's going to give us x divided by 4 equals 9. And then the operation we're going to do last is multiply 4, because the opposite of division is multiplication, which is the inverse. And that's going to give us 4 times 9, which is 36. So at the end of the day, our answer is x equals 36. So to give us some examples to see how it actually looks when we have a problem, we're going to start off with example number 1 on our whiteboard saying 1 plus 2x equals 9. So as you can see, we have our steps already listed. Step 1 shows that 1 plus 2x equals 9. Step 2 shows us what our answer would be once we are done with that step. And last, we'll have our answer, which is x equals something. Starting off, we have 1 plus 2x equals 9. So thinking about what we have to do first, we have to subtract 1 from each side. So going ahead on our whiteboard, we're going to do that right now. So I'm going to subtract 1 and subtract 1. As you can see, 1 subtract 1, these two cancel out, and then 9 subtracted by 1, that gives us 2x equals 8. So as you can see, I did my first step right. Going into my second step, I now have to do the inverse of multiplication because I have a variable next to a coefficient. I have my coefficient next to a variable, and that's going to equal 8. So whatever 2 times a number equals 4, 2 times 4 equals 8. So therefore, to see if that is true, I'm going to divide 2 from each side. So 8 divided by 2. So our answer will be x equals 4. If I ever want to see if my answer is correct, I just plug it back in and I have my answer. So 2 times 4 equals 8. And as you can see, my answer is plus 1. And as you can see, my answer is 9, and that gives us back our original equation. To do problem number 2, which is 4x plus 1 equals 5. We're going to go back to our whiteboard. As you can see, once again, we have our question, and then we have our steps, step number 1, step number 2, and our answer. Within this equation, we have 4x plus 1, so I always read it out as a regular problem. So to read it out as a sentence, 4x plus 1 equals 5. Since I see 4x first, I'm going to do that second, and since I see plus 1 second, I'm going to do that first. So in this equation, I'm doing the inverse operation of addition. The inverse operation of addition is subtraction. I subtract 1 from each side. So whatever I do to the left, I do to the right. As you can see, the 1's cancel out because a plus and a negative becomes 0. 5 subtracted by 1 equals 4. And then I just bring my 4 down, which becomes 4x. Then step number 2 is 4x equals 4. I'm going to go ahead and do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. I'm going to divide 4 from each side. 4 divided by 4 equals x, because 1 times anything is going to equal itself. That's why we have x by itself. And then 4 divided by 4 equals 1. Just to plug it back in to see if my answer is correct, because you always want to check and see if your answer is correct, I'm going to go ahead and say 4 times the number 1. 4 times 1 equals 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of my equation in, which is 4 plus 1, and that should equal 5, which, as we can see, it does. The last equation that we're going to work out is step number 3, which is 2x subtracted by 2 equals 8. Within this equation, it's a little bit different, but same steps. So, as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and try it out. Starting off, I see subtraction, so this time I'm going to do the opposite, which is also addition. Add 2 to both sides. I bring down my 2x, so that's going to be step number 2. So you always want to write down your steps to make sure that you always know what you're doing, so that way you don't get lost in the process of figuring out your answers. With that, I'm going to bring it down. It says 2x, and then I'm going to have now the negative 2 plus 2 cancel out, so I don't need to write that. And I'm going to just write down my answer of what 8 plus 2 is, which equals 10. The last step is going to give me my answer. So just to clear it up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and clear out the top part, so that way I have some more room to write. So clear that out. Then we're going to go ahead and just move this up, so that way we can see. I'll just cut this part out of my recording. Thank you for your patience. With that, I now have 2x equals 10. Then I just go ahead and do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is once again division, because it's always going to be division when you do the inverse multiplication. And then 10 divided by 2, that should give me my answer. As you can see, it only took 2 steps in order for me to get my answer, hence why it's called a two-step equation. When I actually have my answer, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I have 1x. Or I can just go ahead and put x, so that way I don't get myself confused. And last but not least, 10 divided by 2 is 5. With that, to plug in your answer to make sure it's correct, plug in answer. I'm going to go ahead and say 2 times 5, 2 times 5, and that equals 10. And then I want to say 10 subtracted by 2, and if that is correct, move this over a little bit. 10 divided by 2, if that is correct, that's going to give me my original answer, which it is 8. And with that being said, thank you for your time and your patience. This is how we do a two-step equation model.